everyone. So very nice to see everybody, especially new friends, and the first time to come to here. And I'm柏良Chen. I'm the assistant professor at ICI at NCCU. Today is our honor to invite and coordinate with the Taiwan FactCheck Center. And I really appreciate the director, Summer Chen. Yeah, thanks for her coordination. So we have this conference and this forum. Today, our topic is the future and the strategy of the FactCheck organization after the pandemic era. So today is our honor and our pleasure to invite three guest speakers. The first speaker is Jancy Jacobs. Oh, so Jancy, would you mind to say hi to everybody? Okay.
Well, nice to meet all of you.
So Jancy right now is the managing editor of the BOOM Media in India, and he initiates an organization and a magazine tried across the border, not only in India but also in Bangladesh and Myanmar. So right now he is very active, and he also promotes the ideas of how to counter the misinformation and disinformation. So he's very active, and he knows the mechanism and the challenge of the India. So today is our honor to invite him. And the second speaker today we invite is Wang Hu. Wang Hu right now is the CEO at the Temple Digital. And Wang Hu, he is also the very active member, and he coordinates more than 20 associations in Indonesia to counter the disinformation and misinformation. So, and then we will hear his voice on the for the second panel, second speaker. And the third, we invite the third speaker is Yanai Hitohumi. Yanai Hitohumi, he was a lawyer and he graduated from Keio University. And right now he is serving as a serving as the executive director of the FactCheck Initiate organization in Japan. So today we will hear his voice as a third speaker. So for today's conference, we have two sessions. The first session will broadcast the video from the three speakers, and the second session will open the forums and let everybody ask the question and have more time to interact with these three speakers. So okay, so right now we will broadcast the videos.
Thank you. It's my privilege actually from BOOM India to speak here at this conference, and it's always a good time to meet all our friends, in fact checkers from Taiwan, a country that actually I visited way back in 2019, and I love the country and I love the people there. So hello to everyone from India to Taiwan. So let me start my presentation, and let me just open my window here. So this is what I have titled it as debunking misinformation in Asia, and you can see here that that we are calling truth seekers, and that's been the model that we have approached, saying that everyone who wants to work with us, they will join this fight against fake news, and we are calling them the truth seekers. That's a program that we developed during this last 1.5 years. So let me just tell you all something about BOOM. We are one of the first IFCN certified fact checkers in India, partnered with Facebook since state elections in 2018. We work with WhatsApp and also a very local Indian brand called ShareChat. We designed media literacy curriculum for Google way back in 2019 and 18. National election related misinformation in January to May 2019. That was one of the biggest elections that we were fact checking. Apart from that, we are in 3 languages: English, Hindi, and Bengali. April 2020, actually in the middle of the COVID situation that we were facing, We launched in 2 countries, that's in Myanmar and Bangladesh. So it has been a very fulfilling experience for us, considering the kind of events that have taken place in both these countries, especially in Myanmar, as all of you all know. We also started a membership project called Truth Seekers Fest. This is, I will talk about this a little more later, but this is our effort to actually broad base our funding, and also to bring in more crowdsourcing methods so that people can come and be a part of the work that we are doing. So we are now a 20 member team based out of Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and Kolkata, and also from Myanmar and Bangladesh. So that's a little bit about BOOM and the kind of creatives that we are using, that you can see as on the right hand side of the screen as well. Now in Myanmar, we have 4 fact checkers who've been working with us. It's been quite a tough time for those fact checkers, all local journalists. They've been under severe pressure and stress over the last several months, ever since the military coup took place, and in the midst of COVID, a lot of the other problems that they were facing, but they're writing stories every day for us, and they're doing a fantastic job. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, we have 3 fact checkers who are working with us, and over the last month or so, I'm not sure whether all of you all are aware, but there have been very stringent persecution and attacks against the minority Hindu community due to some misinformation that was spread. And we were, in fact, from India, we were actually fact checking that, as well as our team back there in Bangladesh as well. So fake news in India, I would just want to give some overview. It's not a new phenomenon. Fake news has been rampant for many years, especially on social media. Attention only post the November 2016 in the post-Trump era. Especially Trump weaponized this term. In India, demonization of mainstream media had started long back. I don't know whether you all use these terms back in your countries, but media will not tell you this. Prostitutes, it's a derogatory term which is used against journalists quite often. News traders, these are the kind of terms that are used against mainstream media and journalists. Mainstream media also underestimated the impact of fake news. That has been one of the biggest problems, and that's why they woke up quite late to this problem. Political IT cells, on the other hand, they built a robust online army much before mainstream media discovered social media. So that credit we have to give it to the political class, that they were able to see the might and power of social media way before even the media themselves identified that. Now, why do we need fact checkers? We are looking at content ignored by mainstream media. We are certified by IFCN, World Body of Fact Checkers. Many of you are aware of what IFCN is all about. Stringent processes like primary source-led news and strict attribution. Not chasing page views and viral news, because we are actually concerned with debunking a lot of the viral news which is going, which mainstream media publishers also publish. We are independent, free from government or corporate pressure. Now, how do we fact check? We are using Google reverse image search, looking for credible mainstream media reports. We reach out to official sources for their comment. We call local police, send reporters on the ground to verify. We do not depend on anonymous source based, but only primary source. If we don't have a primary source, we will not publish that story. Now, there are 2 WhatsApp tip lines that we are also using. I'm just giving you a sample of how those tip lines look. People send us information on these tip lines, and then we reply. As you can see in this second image, someone has asked us something, and we have also replied by sharing our story and calling it fake. Now, I just want to spend time on 2 slides to show you why India is such an important market for users, for platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp. For Facebook, the Statista 2021 data shows that India, contributes to about 340 million users to Facebook. You can see the second biggest market is their own homegrown market, which is United States, which is only about 200 million. Indonesia is 140, Brazil is 130, and then so on. So India is way ahead. It's about 340 million. I'm assuming that this data is actually a bit dated, because this was really about 5 to 6 months back. So the numbers would have gone up. WhatsApp users, if you look at this, India is nearly 400 million users. Second comes Brazil, which is like only about 110 million users. So for WhatsApp as well, India is a massive market. Now focus on WhatsApp, cheap mobile data plans, more people are coming online for the first time. Many of them in India lack media literacy on how to consume news. Misinformation thrives in regional languages away from the scrutiny of English or Hindi mainstream media. In India, we have 26 official languages, and apart from that, a lot of dialects, hundreds and hundreds of dialects and other local languages which are not official languages. So it's a complex country, very diverse, and that's why the problems that platforms face here in this country and also the regulatory agencies, it's very different. Fact checkers are predominantly focused on debunking misinformation in these languages. And WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted, so anonymity is key to spreading rumors. Now, 2018 has been a defining year. Fake news just doesn't misinform, but it also kills. Over 35 people have died since 2017. Mobs have lynched innocents on charges of being child kidnappers. Zero fear of the law because police have been attacked when they tried to save those being lynched. I just want to give a caveat here that this problem that we saw we saw this in 2018. Ever since that, child kidnapping rumors have come down. So a lot of the misinformation that were contributing to that kind of those kind of fatal cases, those have come down now. But yet we do see a lot of communal misinformation now. Elections 2014 and 2019, exponential rise of voters who are now being touched by multiple social media platforms: Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, ShareChat, TikTok. TikTok, has been banned in India because of our border tensions with China since last year. But apart from that, all these other platforms are here. Bad actors using celebs, sports stars, and army as proxies to build audience. Political parties later buy those pages from these platforms, and then they push out political propaganda. WhatsApp, it is difficult to nail due to the encryption problem that we discussed. In 2014, there were 0 fact checkers tracking social media in India. In 2019, there were, at the last count that I looked at, there were at least 10 organized websites who were doing this work. Now, let me come to 2020, COVID and health misinformation. Now, this is where all the action took place. We did about 314 fact checks about COVID-19. These are only fact checks. We did lots of other stories which were explainers, which are not included in this count. Those would be another 100, 150 stories. So we did between March 2020 to March 2021. 40% were videos, were most common form of disinformation among the stories that we have done. 14% were about communal issues. It's quite serious. The tensions between Hindus and Muslims are quite serious here. And a lot of misinformation about the Muslim community, because they're the minorities, were spread, which created a lot of hassle during this time. 12% were related to health, and that's how we bifurcated this. Let me also show you another slide. This is a study that we did, roughly somewhere around April or May this year. And we looked at 1 year of COVID, and we found that a majority of those provided misleading information to spread communal claims, health-related claims, or with misleading information about lockdown or COVID-19 related restrictions. So if you look at this, misleading content was about 84 stories, fabricated 80, false context 73, false connection 33, imposter content 27, manipulated 12, and satire roughly about 3 stories. We also had one of the biggest other events that we saw, Afghanistan and Taliban 2021. We did about 32 stories within 3 weeks, and we fact-checked a lot of mainstream media publishers who were publishing many of these fake videos and images, and it was like a harvest, if I can use it in that term here. Everywhere where we were looking, all the big national media publishers were using these images and videos to talk about something or the other that is happening in Afghanistan, and Taliban being the perpetrator. But a lot of the videos and images that they were using were definitely not related to any of the incidents that were taking place there. Now, Here's a slide that I'm showing you. These are all the prominent national television channels and newspapers, some of them. And you can see how they were all spreading misinformation through the stories that they were doing. Okay, let me come back to COVID. We did actually a very big campaign during this time this year, because we found that a lot of the citizens in this country were not taking the vaccines. So I know you can't read Hindi here, but what we are trying to say here is that vaccine kaam karti hai, which means, if I translate it into English, vaccine does work. And we also said sansani nahi sirf sach in Hindi, which meant no sensationalism, just the truth. That's how we ran this campaign. This gentleman you're seeing on the screen, he's actually a very well-known TV actor here in India. And we did this campaign, we did a series of videos with him, where he started explaining very simple concepts about vaccines and why it is important to take. We targeted the senior citizens because they were the most vulnerable, since they had a lot of concerns about health and whether they should be taking the vaccines or not. About 2.2 million views, plus views we got, and we did a lot of these videos in Hindi. These are the snapshots of the senior citizen workshops we did on Zoom. We did about 8 online workshops where we reached about 500 senior citizens who were trained about media literacy, how to read stuff that they see on WhatsApp and their social media groups, how to identify what is true and what is false. So we did it was quite fun, because teaching senior citizens is actually very good, because they're very patient, they want to pay attention and they want to understand. And it was a completely new audience that opened up for us. This is an overview of the media activities and the press coverage of the public service campaign that we did. All these newspapers picked up the press releases that we had put out. Let me also show you, and I'm coming to the conclusion of this presentation. We, as I told you, that we also started our membership program. And what we did is we called ourselves the Truth Seekers. And we asked people who were truth seekers to come and join us. So we started a Facebook page. We started doing a lot of engagement on WhatsApp. And then we have also done a lot of webinars. So here are some of the webinars that we did. The idea of truth in a polarized India. How is information warfare shaping our lives? And we brought these 2 authors who have written a very excellent book on on the alternate realities and how politicians and those people who are in power, they actually build alternate realities. And we also did a webinar talking about exploring the role of big tech in fighting disinformation and polarization. So this is broadly what we have done. And we are doing this every Friday at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And the way we do it is that we publicize these webinars. We ask people to register. And then what we also try to do is we try to reach out to them to see if they want to become members. So slowly by slowly, people are becoming members, and they are taking our membership, and we are giving them a newsletter. We are also giving them exclusive access to certain stories, and we are writing. We are at least giving them 2 newsletters every week, and we are giving exclusive access to all these online webinars where we are bringing in experts to talk about matters relating to social media. We also did a lot of outreach workshops and campaigns, as I've shown you earlier as well. We've also launched a schools program to train students age group between 11 to 18 years. The theme is how to be a good digital citizen. And we've covered over 2,500 students and vaccination workshops targeting senior citizens. So this is the work that we've done over a period of time over the last 1 year. And it's been a fairly exciting time for us to actually meet people and talk to them and understand, what do they want. We have moved on from just doing fact checking. We are also doing a lot of explainers. We are doing. We are also doing a lot of news stories. We are doing media literacy. We are looking from the teen to the senior citizens. We are trying to reach this entire spectrum of people who have access of social media, and also these smartphones, which become the medium of accessing information as well as misinformation. So very happy to actually talk to you and take questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jency. So thanks for your presentation and your videos. And our next speaker will be the Wahyu. Wahyu is a big name in Indonesia, and Wahyu right now is serving as the CEO at the Tempo Digital. And in the previous day, Wahyu already initiated a Panama report and try to transplant and introduce in Indonesia. And Wahyu right now is also was serving as a board member of the Independent Journalist Airlines in Indonesia. So he was provide us a lot of the news perspective, not only about the COVID-19, but also about the fact-checking and its landscape in Indonesia. So Wahyu will have the video here. Okay, thank you.
My name is Wahyu Diatmika from Tempo, Indonesia. We started doing fact-checking in 2018, so it's 3 years ago. And we have been part of IFCN, the International Fact-Checking Network, one of 6 media and organization in Indonesia that has been recognized as IFCN partners. Today I want to give you a brief explanation on the future of fact-checking in Indonesia after the pandemic, and also lay out some of the key challenges that we face during the pandemic. How do we address those challenges and the way forward? I would like to share my screen so you can also understand better what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Okay. I hope the screen is available to you now. So, of course, you know, with this warning from the World Health Organization Director General at the beginning of the pandemic, I think 18, 19 months ago, he warned us that we are not just fighting an epidemic with COVID-19, we are fighting an infodemic, because with this new disease that a lot of scientists don't have any full picture yet, blossoming with it is different kind of mis and disinformation that confuse the public. And this is what we have to face as fact checkers in all parts of the world, including in Indonesia. The UNESCO chief, Audrey Azoulay, also mentioned this in her speech during the World Press Freedom Day in 2020. She said that just as in war, truth could be considered as the first casualty of the coronavirus pandemic. I think both of these statements underline the importance of fact-checking, the importance of our work in making sure the public have access to credible information, especially in these difficult times. You can see this is a graph that I borrowed from IFCN database, showing that many kind of misinformation topic during the pandemic. And one of the main misinformation topic is related to government's action. As you know, this situation created a tension between fact checkers and media, because in a lot of occasions, in a lot of events, sometimes government's policies or government action has been the main source of misinformation and disinformation. And ability of governments to convey their message properly and be understood by the public is key in making sure the coronavirus can be prevented and spread can be controlled. Without good proper messaging of public information, the public will be in this array, will be confused because there's so many versions of what is the policies from governments. And because of that, one of the first thing that Tempo did during the pandemic is joining the coronavirus alliance for fact-checking. So we become part of this alliance initiated by Pointer Institute and IFCN, where we team up with other fact-checkers around the globe and contribute to the database of misinformation and disinformation, and of course the debunk articles. So we have involved from the beginning of the alliance, sending and submitting our articles to the main database to make sure that we have also access to other fact checkers' work. So when a hoax or misinformation happen in Indonesia that can be traced back to another country, we will have access to their articles that already been published, and that will save a lot of time and energy from our fact checkers because it's already been debunked. So what we need to do is just translate it into Indonesian language and then publish it for our audience. The Coronavirus Facts Alliance has developed into a big network of 70 countries and using 40 different languages. And as you see here, the general public can access our articles in the database. And I think that helped the public in this pandemic time to find credible information easily and in a quick manner. But of course, the challenge doesn't stop there. We have seen the same trend as in Europe and America, where there's a growing distrust of science, not just about climate change, but of course a lot of related to other issues from health, politics, and other. This trend continue. Maybe it has been exacerbated by the pandemic, but it's still something that we are worried about moving forward. And also the credibility of social media platforms and how social media has been accused as one of the place where misinformation and disinformation can go unchecked sometime. So we need to keep working with big tech platforms, creating new ways to tackle this problem together. This is another challenge moving forward, how to make sure that fact checkers can work effectively on the social media platforms. And we also see a lot of development on deep fake, a lot of new methods, new technology being used to create disinformation and misinformation. And we need to equip ourselves with more skill and technology so that our work as fact checkers can also become more effective. This is why we created Cek Fakta in Indonesia. Cekfakta.com is a collaboration of more than 30 media across Indonesia, not only Tempo, but also other national and local media that share our fact-checking articles and also coordinate between ourselves so that we can pull our resources together and handle the misinformation and disinformation happen in our social media platforms and other digital platforms. This is some of the media that were involved. And we not only share content, and we also involved in live event together, especially during the last general election. We were hosted by Google to help hosting all of the different media to work in one room in doing live fact-checking for the presidential election. On social media, we also support one another, amplified our work so that it can reach a wider audience. What are the lessons learned that we have during the pandemic and during all this collaborative work? We realize that the ecosystem is really important. We need to involve more relevant parties, educate the public, spread more news and media literacy. We need to be more collective and collegial, where important decision making is inclusive, because this is a shared problem, a shared challenge, so that solution also need to be come up from all of us. And we need to make sure that the benefits of working together is also enjoyed by all parties, not only by one or two parties involved. That will make this collaborative work more sustainable in the future. This is some of the things that we did. We did live fact-checking, and this is one of the situation on the ground. This is, of course, before the pandemic, but we continue during the pandemic doing live fact-checking for the coronavirus related issues. So lastly, I think this is some of the key things that we need to do moving forward. I think the coalition of independent media has to strengthen its collaboration. We need to work together more, producing more impartial and evidence-based fact-checking. And we need to involve the public, give more trainings to educate the public so they can be empowered and they can do their own fact-checking, because they are the first line of defense. They are the first frontier. If the public is not aware and doesn't know how to differentiate between credible information, what is news, what is not news, what is hoax, what is misinformation and disinformation, then we cannot just rely on the media. It needs to be collaboration, and it needs to be involving all parties. We need to strengthen and continue projects like what have been started by IFCN, the Coronavirus Facts Alliance, and also moving it to a wider level, involving more people, more media. And we need to keep working with social media platforms, involving technology to be able to spread our work more effectively and addressing potential viral hoax before it even spreading. For the media itself, for Tempo, I think we want to create fact-checking as our differentiation, because every media has a unique selling point that differentiate themselves from other media, and I think fact-checking is a very potential differentiation value for Tempo. And we want to publish our content in multi-channel, in all social media platforms, and in all kind of formats, not only text, but also podcasts, also video and graphics, maybe comic book, and all manners that can reach the targeted segment in our society. And we need to also increase our community and user engagement, making sure that the public is an integral part, is an important part of our work in fact-checking. Thank you, and terima kasih for the opportunity to share what we have been doing and what we plan moving forward as a fact-checking organization. Thank you so much.
This video is very inspiring and very comprehensive to introduce the landscape of Indonesians. And then we will invite our next third speaker, Yanai Hirohumi. Before I introduce Yanai-san, I really appreciate the last two speakers' introduction, but also encourage all audience to join us If you have any question, please post on our Google link, our message. You can share your opinions, your comment, or your question on the message, and then we'll know your question before we open the floor. Okay, so and then I will introduce the third speaker, Yanai Hitofumi. Hitofumi, he graduated from Keio University, and he passed the bar exam. He was an attorney at law, and before serving as the director of the fact-checking initiative in Japan, he was serving in Sankei newspaper. And in these 7 years, he published more than hundreds reports, try to correct the disinformation and misinformation. And it was also published by the mainstream mass media. So Yanai Hitofumi, he will introduce what is the distinct landscape of the Japanese mainstream mass media, and also the implication of the fact-check initiative in Japan, its organization and its difficulty. So we'll open the floor for the Yanai Hitofumi's videos. Okay, thank you.
はい、私、ファクトチェックイニシアティブ FIJ の事務局長の柳井と申します。今日はですね、フォーラム・オン・ファクトチェッキング・イン・エジア、台湾のこのフォーラム、ファクトチェックのフォーラムで、お招きいただきましてありがとうございます。今日は、日本のファクトチェックの取り組み、これをご説明したいと思います。ファクトチェックの、担い手を広げるためのファクトチェック支援システムの構築と題しまして、発表をさせていただければと思います。2枚目いきます。現在の、日本におけるファクトチェックの、現状、これはちょっと特殊なので説明しておきたいと思います。皆さんのその各国、世界各国ではですね、ファクトチェック団体が増えていますけれども、日本にはまだ本格的なファクトチェック団体がないんですね。これが一つ日本のちょっと特殊な状況にあります。3枚目いきます。日本におけるファクトチェック、これがなぜそれほど活発ではないのか。本格的なファクトチェック団体が生まれていない理由は何なのか、これよく聞かれますので、最初に説明しておきたいと思います。日本の、メディア関係者、これもともとファクトチェックということについては、あまり、知られていませんでした。日本社会における、危機感の不足、誤情報や偽情報問題というものについての危機感の不足と、それと相まって、日本のメディア関係者における、ファクトチェックについての、知識不足というものが、背景にあったと思います。で、そういった中で、ファクトチェックの理解促進、普及のために、ファクトチェックイニシアティブジャパン FIJ、私を中心に、専門家やジャーナリストと、一緒になって設立しました。これは2017年です。で、日本のメディアには、まだですね、その後、ファクトチェックを本格的に行う団体はないんですね。基本的に、既存の伝統的なメディアやオンラインメディアが、時々ファクトチェックをするという状況になっています。で、なぜ、現在もそうなっているのかというと、日本のメディアにはファクトチェックというものに集中する余裕がない、専門部署やファクトチェック専門記者が置かれていない、そしてファンドですね、やはりそのジャーナリズムの活動を大規模に支援するような、財団とかファンドがないというのが現実としてあります。で、そういった中で、FIJ2017 年、発足してどういうことをやってきたか、4ページ目に行きますが、一つはその、メディアパートナーという仕組みを作ってですね、FIJ はその FIJ 自体はファクトチェックを、行う団体ではないんですけれども、既存のメディア、それからオンラインメディアと協力して、 ファクトチェックというものをに取り組んでもらう、そういう仕組みをこれまで作ってきました。今、国内でファクトチェック記事を出すようになった、メディアは、合わせて9つ、それから、海外の台湾や香港のメディアパートナーとも連携をして活動をしています。具体的に、FIJ でどのようなプロジェクトをやってきたかご説明しますと、まず2017年に FIJ がスタートしたんですが、その年に総選挙、日本で衆議院の選挙ですね、が行われまして、その際のファクトチェックプロジェクトというものを我々やりました。4つのオンラインメディアが参加する形で、日本で初めて選挙期間中のファクトチェックということを行いました。で、その後もですね、沖縄県知事選挙とか、参議院選挙といった選挙の機会に、ファクトチェックプロジェクトをやって、複数のメディアに、ファクトチェックを実施してもらいました。でその後、2019年頃から、台湾ファクトチェックセンターとも連携するようになり、そして2020年、COVID-19、コロナの、流行の後ですね、この COVID-19 に関するファクトチェックプロジェクト、これを2020年、3月頃からスタートしました。で、ここでは国内の、メディアも、それから、海外のメディアとも連携しながら、新型コロナに関するファクトチェックの、特設サイトですね、スペシャルサイトを作ってですね、情報発信をしてきました。そして、今年、まさに今、実は私はこの収録中行われているんですけども、日本の総選挙、4年ぶりの総選挙が行われています。このファクトチェックプロジェクトも今実施をしております。で、FIJ はですね、先ほど、日本のファクトチェックの状況、特殊性について申し上げましたけれども、既存のメディアが、時々ファクトチェックをする状況ですね。で専門的なファクトチェック団体や専門的なファクトチェック記者は今現状ではいないわけです。でそうした中で FIJ はですね、大学生や、社会人のボランティアと連携しながら、ファクトチェック活動、メディアのファクトチェックを、支援する、そういう取り組みをしています。これがファクトチェック、日本独特のファクトチェック、ネットワークシステムというものを今、築き上げているんですけども、簡単に言うと、一般の人が、疑問に思った怪しい情報、これを、FIJ のスタッフ、学生の中心としたスタッフが見つけ出して、でこれは、自動的に、検知するシステムも使っています。そういったものを使いながら、怪しい情報、クエスチョナブルインフォメーションを見つけ出して、クレイモニターという、我々呼んでいるデータベースに登録していきます。でこれが、メディアパートナーに提供されますので、ファクトチェックに活用されると、こういう活用してもらうというような、そういう仕組みを作ってきています。これによって、かなりファクトチェックの、数が増えてくるようになりました。こういった取り組みを本格的にしだしたのは2019年ぐらいになります。で、毎日モニタリング1日、4時間ぐらいの体制なんですけれども、学生を中心にしたスタッフが、先ほど言った自動的に、怪しい情報を見つけ出す、そういう、システムも使いながらですね、チェックしています。でこれをクレイモニターに登録すると、スラックに、新しい情報が届くようになっています。このスラックには、メディアパートナーの記者が登録している形になります。で、 怪しい情報が今ありますよということを、お知らせをして、で、メディアパートナーの方で、これはファクトチェックを、すべきだと考えたら、それぞれのメディアの判断でファクトチェックを行ってもらうということになります。で、このクレイモニターには今、毎月、200件前後の疑義言説と我々呼んでます。questionable information という、怪しい情報を登録をして、メディアパートナーに提供しています。これはあくまで国内のメディアパートナーに提供しているものになります。で、その結果今ですね、ファクトチェックの、記事もかなり増えてきました。2018年、2019年の段階では、年間50本、全部合わせてですよ。日本で発表されるファクトチェックの記事は50本もなかったんですけれども、2020年、これはコロナの影響もありますが、150本以上のファクトチェック記事が、発表されました。で、こういったそのファクトチェック記事が増えてきた。日本でも少しずつ増えてきた。ということで、いろんなメディアがですね、バラバラに発表しています。でしかも、ちょっとそのファクトチェックのサイトというんですかね、それがわかりやすくはなっていないんですね、あまりね。ですので、それぞれメディアパートナーが発表したファクトチェック記事を一つのプラットフォームに、まとめて、一般の人がわかりやすくファクトチェックの結果を見れるような、そういうファクトチェックナビというウェブのプラットフォームも開発しました。これは2020年の9月ぐらいからスタートしたんですけれども、まさにコロナの最中に、こういったウェブ、プラットフォームをスタートして、最近になってまた少しデザインをリニューアルしましたので、これ navi.fij.info というウェブ上でご覧になれますので、自由にご覧になれますので、ぜひ皆さんも一度ちょっとどんな感じか見ていただければと思います。いろいろな、日本の新聞社、それから、オンラインメディア、あるいは NPO 団体が、発表したファクトチェックを、ここでまとめて見れるようにしている。もちろんそれぞれの、詳しいファクトチェック記事も、リンクをしていますので、見れるようになっています。で、ここまでは主にその FIJ がどういう、この日本のそのなかなかファクトチェック専門団体も専門メディア、専門記者がない状況で、メディアに対してファクトチェックをもっと活発にやってもらえるように、支援をしてきたか、そのお話をしてきました。で、ここから少しちょっと個別の話もしたいと思いますけれども、COVID-19 の、このファクトチェックが、これ非常に重要になったのが、2020年のもう2月頃からだったと思います。で、我々、日本ではですね、FIJ が、この COVID-19 のファクトチェックの、スペシャルサイトを作ってですね、そして、そこに、日本のメディアのファクトチェックの結果はもちろんですけれども、海外の、ファクトチェックの結果も日本語に訳して、それでまとめて見れるようにしました。これはIFCN が、データベース、もう各国の COVID-19 のファクトチェックの結果を英語でデータベース作られましたので、その中から重要なものを、全てではないですけれども、重要なものを日本語に訳して、そして紹介する。で、これはこの COVID-19 では、やはり世界中の、国が、このコロナによる影響を受けたわけですので、コロナに関する様々な情報が、やはり翻訳されて日本にもたくさん入ってきました。ですので、海外のやっぱり、ミスインフォメーション、ディスインフォメーションについても、どういうものが 流れているかということを、日本の一般の人に、事前に知らせておくというか、そういうことも意味のある試みだったのかなと思います。それともう一つはですね、それぞれの国、海外で日本について流れているミスインフォメーション、ディスインフォメーション、これを海外のファクトチェック団体はそれぞれしっかりした台湾も含めてあるわけですけども、日本についての調査をするのは難しいこともありますよね。これはどこでもそうだと思います。自分たちの国の中に関するファクトチェックは自分たちでいろいろ取材はしやすいわけですけども、海外に関するファクトチェックになってくると、なかなかわからないことが多いと思います。そこで我々 FIJ はこの COVID-19 をきっかけに、海外のファクトチェック団体に日本についての調査をする場合は FIJ も協力しますと、こういうふうに呼びかけたんですね。その結果、台湾のファクトチェックセンターや、それからインドのBOOMという団体、それから台湾のマイゴーペンさん、こういったいくつかの海外のファクトチェック団体から協力を求められて、調査に協力した、そういうこともやりました。そして、12ページ目になりますけれども、もう一つですね、これは現在、先ほども言いました、2021年10月のこの総選挙が、衆議院の総選挙が日本で行われました。現在行われているんですけど、この収録の間に。で、この選挙に関するファクトチェックプロジェクト、これを今回もやりましたけれども、新しい、取り組みをしました。具体的には、テレビ討論、テレビでの党首討論ですね。今、日本には、8党ないし9党首が、主に9つの政党がですね、あります。結構多いんですね。で、その9つの政党が、大体そのテレビ討論の機会に、全員出てきます。で、そういったその党首討論会っていうのが何度か行われました。各テレビ局で。で、それを、そのうちのですね、それぞれの発言の、これすべてどういう発言をしたのかという、発言の文字起こし、それと、その中の発言の中のうちのファクチュアルステートメントですね。日本語では事実言明って言ってますが、ファクチュアルステートメント、つまり事実について述べた発言、これだけをピックアップしたシートを作りまして、で、このリストをできるだけ早く我々 FIJ のスタッフが作ってメディアパートに提供しました。このリストっていうのは正しいか正しくないかは分かりません。あくまで事実言明、ファクチュアルステートメントだけをですね、正しいか正しくないか関係なく、ピックアップしたものですね。そういうものを作って、そうするとですね、これは何を目的とするかというと、ファクトチェックをしようとしている、メディアの記者としては、これはまずファクトチェックの対象はオピニオンではなくて事実ですから、事実についての発言がまず必要なんですね。でそれがあると、これは明らかに正しいということは分かるものもあれば、これは本当なのか、これ言ってる事実が、本当なのか、記者の目から見ても疑わしいものが見つかりやすいと思うんですね。すべての討論会、これ1時間とか2時間とか長いですから、もうすべて、見るよりもこのファクチュアルステートメントに絞って、チェックをできる。そうすると効率的にファクトチェックもできるんじゃないかということで、その結果提供したんですが、その結果、実際にこれが活用されていくつかのメディアにファクトチェックがなされました。こういった取り組みをしてくるんです。そろそろ時間にもなってきましたので、締めくくりの話をしますが、我々FIJ はですね、目指す社会像としては、ミスインフォメーションやディスインフォメーションというのは撲滅はできない。 これは社会に悪い影響を与えるものだけれども、完全になくすことはできないと考えています。なので、一方でですね、これをじゃあ、社会に悪い影響を与えるから法律で規制するということも非常に良くないと思っています。副作用が大きい。政府当局や法規制によるものというのは恣意的になりがちなので、なるべくその誤情報や偽情報の問題は法規制ではなくて民間の多様な担い手によるファクトチェックが必要だと考えています。で、これはできるだけ多くのファクトチェッカーが生まれることが重要だと思っているんですが、その結果ですね、多くのミスインフォメーション、ディスインフォメーションが可視化される、つまり見える状態になってくる。で、見えてくると、それを実態を把握して、プラットフォーム事業者、SNS のFacebook や Twitter をはじめとする事業者ですね。そういったところとも連携した拡散の防止というのができやすくなると思うんですね。またメディア情報リテラシーの教育にも活用がしやすくなると思います。具体的なミスインフォメーション、ディスインフォメーションがいろんなものがファクトチェックされると、それだけ教育でもいろんなメディアリテラシーに使える。それから学術研究にも応用できると思います。そういった中で最終的に我々目指すのはインフォデミックに対する社会全体の免疫力を強化し、強い規制にはよらずに表現の自由を守りつつ、誤情報、偽情報がですね、自然に脱力化されるような社会、力を持たないような社会、こういうものを目指す社会像として考えております。そういった中でできるだけ多くの民間のファクトチェックの担い手が増えるような取り組みを今後も続けていきたい。そのために今後の目標課題ですが、よりその育成をシステムを強化して、またファクトチェックの担い手がですね、きちんと活躍できる機会を作るということが重要かなと思っています。ですので今はですね、ファクトチェックができる。でもそれができるから、すぐにそれで生活できる。あるいはその就職できるという状態に日本ではなってないんですね。日本ではファクトチェックをする人が活躍できる機会というのは非常にまだ乏しい。そこをどうやって拡大していくのかということの今後の課題があります。もう一つは、今そのファクトチェック団体はまだ専門的な団体が日本では一つもないと最初申し上げました。これがやっぱり日本にも必要になってくるということは、だんだん日本でもですね、そういう議論が実は出てきています。やっぱり必要だなと、専門的なファクトチェック団体はやっぱり作っていかなきゃならないです。ただそれはまだすぐにはできないんですけども、それができるようなサポート、特に IFCN に加盟できるようなメディア団体へのサポート、こういうことをやっていきたい。もう一つはそのファクトチェックがまだまだその日本では認知されていません。もっともっと多くの人に知ってもらう必要がある。そしてそのファクトチェックというものを活用していただく。そのためにもプラットフォーマーですね。やはりその情報の流通を大きく担っているプラットフォーマーとより一層の連携強化を図っていきたい。ここは Yahoo さんとか LINE さんとか、そういったところと我々にもサポートをだんだんしてくれるようになりましたので、より具体的に連携を強化していきたいと思っています。以上が日本のファクトチェック支援システムというものをFIJ が中心になって作ってきた。そしてそれを今後ともそれを強化していくという方向性についてお話をさせていただきました。どうもありがとうございました。
Okay, so thank you, Yana Humi. Thanks for your coming and thanks for your videos. So right now we'll move forward to the second session of our conference today. So our second session will, before we open the floor, as a host, I have 3 questions in my mind to all three speakers. The first question is about the relationship between the governments and the fact-checking organization in your own jurisdiction, especially during the COVID-19. I know, a lot of contradiction and a lot of, potential conflict. So I wonder about the relationship between the government and the fact-checking organization in your own jurisdiction. That's my first question. And the second question, for all three speakers, you mentioned about the volunteers program or the media literacy. So, but I wonder, during the COVID-19, in this 1 and almost 2 years, in these 2 years, the media literacy program or the volunteer program is speeding up or was slowed down, especially during the lockdown period. So that is my second question. And my third question is a little bit controversial because in Taiwan, especially from this May, we debate about the effect about the vaccines, whether the vaccination is effective or is valid, or is there any conspiracy theory about the vaccine? So I just wonder about the, your organization and the government. How do you deal with this kind of, controversial issue and, that's the kind of social cleavage? So I wonder how do you deal with and address this question? So that's 3 questions in my mind. So before I open the floor to the, to the every participant in this conference, so would you mind to, answer these 3 questions? Okay, thank you. So who will be the first? Jency, Yanai, or Wahyu?
Hi. I'm happy
Jency,
to,
please.
Yeah, sorry. I'm happy to go first. Yeah, so as far as our relationship with the government or our coordination with the government, we function like any other news organization where we don't necessarily work with the government, but we are not, not because we don't want to work with the government, but there doesn't seem to be any framework right now to listen to what the government has to say, because the government and the media, at least we feel perennially have to, cannot be having a symbiotic relationship in any form, because we are out there to fact check everyone, and especially politicians and those who are in power. So that's a broad framework within which we work. But at the same time, when it came to COVID, at least, we had to depend on the government in terms of information, in terms of data, in terms of credible information about lockdowns, about possible vaccines that are going to come, about any cure that the health ministry is proposing, several things, and a lot has happened over the last 1.5 years. So we did keep a very sharp eye on government communication when it came to any misinformation that is coming in. We always called up the government authorities, the health ministry press conferences that used to happen practically on a daily basis, pay attention to what the secretaries and the ministers are saying, cross-check based on the information that they are giving with what is there on the ground. So all of this coordination was happening only at our level. We did not really have any one-to-one interaction with the government, because as a fact checker, we have always kept away from working formally or officially either with the police or with the state governments or with the center, because we feel that only if we keep a distance, we will be able to fact check them quite closely. So that's I'm not sure whether my answer is enough, but if you have any follow-up question, I'm happy to answer that.
So thank you so much. Thanks for Jency. So Wahyu, you want to speak out?
Yes, thank you, Professor Chen. In Indonesia, the situation, I think, developed quite it's quite different from the beginning. So it's been almost 2 years since the start of the pandemic. Our government took a different action, I think, in the last 1 year. At the beginning, there was a lot of denial. There's a lot of disbelief. Even some ministers from the government issued statement that Indonesia is spared from the pandemic because of it's a tropical country, because of the hot weather will kill the virus and those sort of things. And even the president himself at one point acknowledged that the government deliberately kept some of the information about the pandemic private, so not sharing them in public because they don't want to create panic, between citizens, among the citizens. So our approach to government stance also developed based on that. In the beginning, there's very little cooperation. There's limited cooperation between fact checkers and government, and obviously because the stance also from the government side was denying the pandemic and also reassuring the public that the pandemic will not reach Indonesia. But once the situation get worse, the Minister of Health was reshuffled, so there is a new minister, and the new approach taken was more scientific, was more evidence-based, and we also see more opportunity and more invitation to collaborate with the government in spreading factual evidence about the pandemic, scientific evidence about the pandemic. So in the last couple of months, we created several venues for collaboration between media, fact checkers, and the government. As Jency mentioned, whether we like it or not, the government is still the authority, and they have the source of information regarding protocols, health protocol, and other measures.
Okay, so thank you, Wahyu. Yeah, your answer is very clear. And how about Yanai? Yanai-san, どうぞ。
Sorry, on behalf of the Yanai, I will take over this answer. Yanai shared the answer with me earlier, so if you may allow me to talk for a moment. So on the first question, his answer is the Japanese government has taken the position that voluntary fact-checking by the private sector is important, and the recent white paper on information and communication featured promotion of fact-checking for the first time. However, there is no close relationship between the government and fact-checking organizations, as the private sector believes that fact-checking activities should be conducted independently of the government. And news platforms such as Yahoo and Line are also placing increasingly importance on fact-checking. The FIJ's COVID-19 special website, which I mentioned earlier in the presentation, has been introduced by Yahoo and other media, which has increased the awareness of fact-checking in Japan. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for your answer. And so I also have some questions about for each jurisdiction. The first, I have question about the India, especially for Jency. So because I know your work is very hard, because you have to cross the both, not only the national border, but also the religious border, but also the language barrier. So that means you have 3 layers difficulty. The first is language. The second is religion. The third is national border. So I just wonder, how do you do the fact checking, especially the correction, through penetrate such kind of the barrier? So would you elaborate about it? Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, so we primarily fact check in 3 languages, that is English, Hindi, and Bangla. These are the primary 3 languages we fact check in. Hindi is widely understood, though there is a southern part of India where the regional languages are very strong, and we don't have the bandwidth right now to start fact checking in all these languages. But we also believe that a lot of our English stories are read in those regions where Hindi is not understood. So we are trying to manage this very delicate balance. Also, the way we look at it is that which languages are quite prominent on the platform. So Hindi and English are quite prominent. Bangla is a language which we picked up as well because there were elections, very important elections that happened earlier. And that's why it was quite important for us to build our fact-checking processes there. And we had people who had the expertise in that local language. So this is about the language. But even if we don't fact-check in a particular language, by and large, we have enough people, or we have enough expertise within the team to look at multiple languages, to read them, to have an ability to, even if we can't read them, to get in touch with people, the relevant people, to ask them what is the tonality and what is the nuances of how that misinformation in that particular language is spreading, and then debunk them in the languages that we are currently doing. As far as religion is concerned, it's a major problem. Communal misinformation is a very serious issue in this country, and we try and keep ourselves always alert when it comes to communal misinformation, because if we are able to debunk them right at the beginning of the cycle when this misinformation is spreading, we can actually intervene through the work that we do with the platforms, so that some of that misinformation can be controlled. But yes, it's a very tough job. It's an uphill task because sometimes you're only playing catch up, because you may start debunking it, but it may not go as viral probably as much as the misinformation or the disinformation itself. But we do believe that quality of information can be found if someone is searching for it on Google, and many people search for it, their information on Google. So by nature of the work that we do through the claim review and through the other schema that is present with Google themselves, referencing the fact check stories, if someone is searching for a particular information, if our fact check is already present, then it will come up very high on the search, and that's the way we do it. If we do it, then there are other mainstream media outlets who pick up our stories and also amplify it further. So that's how we do this work here.
Thank you, Jancy. Wow, your work is very, very tough. You try to penetrate not only one layer of the barrier, you penetrate 3 layers. I appreciate, Okay, so I also have some question about for the Indonesian jurisdiction, especially for Wahyu, because you just mentioned about you have coordinated with the government, try to clarify or correct the disinformation or misinformation. But under my understanding, Indonesian government sometimes they also do their official fact checking. So, for the official fact checking and the NGO fact checking, sometimes we have potential contradiction. So I wonder if there is any contradiction. How do you rebuild or re-establish the mutual reliance between your NGO and the government? I know sometimes we have gap, but how do you make you fill the gap? So that's my answer, my question. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Chen, it's a difficult situation because sometimes the government fact checkers tend to monopolize. They want to monopolize the interpretation of events and monopolize the interpretation of facts. While the reality is maybe NGOs or media-based fact checkers can have different perspective on the same issue. And I think communication is the key. We did have several cases where we have different findings on a set of possible misinformation and disinformation. The government fact checker said one thing and the media-based fact checker said another thing, and we need to resolve this very quickly before it can create confusion among the public. So I think communication is key, and in some cases, necessarily about the pandemic, but we do have security issue in some part of the country, like in Papua, for instance. And sometimes government fact checkers also try to dominate and monopolize the interpretation of what happened on the ground with regards with security problems and the pro-independent movement in Papua. In one case, the government even tried to block all the internet access in Papua following a riot because of the potential misinformation in the island. And that really make fact checkers work become more difficult, because without the internet access, we cannot verify the information coming from the island, coming from that region. So after that incident, several fact checkers organization in Indonesia decided to file a lawsuit against the government. So we sue the policy of blocking the internet access in the restive region, because the main argument that we brought to court was that the internet blocking hampers fact-checking initiative.
Okay, so Wahyu, wow, thank you so much. Was during the pandemic, the lockdown, I never know, sometimes the internet was also, cut off and, enhance the substantially difficulty to verify the news. Wow, so I cannot imagine how difficulty you already addressed with. Okay, I appreciate, yeah. And I also have one last question for Yanai-san. Because you mentioned Japan's the fact-checking initiates association, is very distinct from the other jurisdiction. So I wonder, I just want to do the comparison before the pandemic and after the pandemic. Do you think the fact-check initiate organization or association get more trust and get more close relationship with the government and the mass media or not? Well, and I also wonder what is the next step of the Japanese the fact-check initiates association will become the independent agency, or still maintain such kind of third party and try to do the partner with the mass media and the government. So just two questions for Yanai-san. Also.
Thank you. I just want to confirm the first question was first question was about the sorry.
じゃあお答え、ちょっと日本語で答えますけども、民間の、ファクトチェック活動は、その政府から独立して行われるべきだと考えているので、政府とファクトチェック団体に密接な関係はありません。
So in terms of the first question, I think the fact checking should be independent from the governmental organization. So there's no such connection between the fact checking groups and the government. Yeah.
で、日本政府は、民間が自主的にファクトチェックをすることは重要だというふうに考えていて、で、最近の情報通信白書、ホワイトペーパーでも、ファクトチェックの推進というものを取り上げるようになってきています。
So the Japanese government thinks the voluntary fact checking is very important. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the government mentioned in the white paper the importance of the fact checking.
でそれで、日本の民間では、ヤフーや LINE、先ほども説明したと思いますけど、ヤフーや LINE といったプラットフォーム事業者が、ファクトチェックを、積極的に紹介するようになってきたというのが、この COVID-19 の後の、特徴です。
After the COVID-19 pandemic, like the media organization such as like Yahoo and Line is more involved to work with us compared to the pre-COVID situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before open the floor to everybody, so I just wonder, Summer Chen, as for the Taiwan FactCheck Center, do you have any question or you want to ask for these three guest speakers? Yeah. So Summer, you have floor.
Yeah, I just type my questions on the chatting room. For Wahyu, I heard from lots of fact checkers and saying that the Indonesia fact checkers and the journalists collaborate together, and you especially for example, you fight against the presidential election, the misinformation during the presidential election, and also for the pandemic. And the last time when we have the chatting, you mentioned about you collaborate the media together to encourage the college students to participate the GNI's fact-checking race. And how did you make that? How did you collaborate the fact checkers and the media together and work together to fight against the misinformation?
Yeah, thank you, Summer. So it's not one person work. It's a collaboration of many parties, many media. I think in Indonesia, at least there are three pillars for the collaboration. First is the Association of Journalists, or AJI, the Independent Alliance of Journalists. They play a significant part because they organize and train the journalists to become fact checkers. They have trained more than 4,000 fact checkers, if I'm not mistaken, across the country in the last 2 or 3 years. And then the second pillar is the Publishers Association. That's where I come from because I'm representing the Publishers Association. We organize more than a dozen media to help initiate the first fact-checking platform. And we introduced fact-checking as a form of content to our members. We have almost 400 online media as members of the association, and we gradually introduce fact-checking as a content variation so that they can serve their audience better. The third pillar is the civil society. It's represented by Mafindo, our colleague from Mafindo. It's an NGO that organize citizen communities without any media background to become fact checkers. So they are really good at making networks with other civil society groups, with schools, universities, religious groups. So they become the third pillar. So with these three pillars, we can work together and tackle this problem, because we start from the very same belief that infodemic, misinformation and disinformation is a common problem. It is not one party's problem. It is not just the media problem. It's not the government problem. It's not anyone's problem. It's everyone's problem. So everyone needs to come together and solve it.
And also, I have a question for Jency. We recently read an article and mentions BOOM is the most productive fact-checking organization in Asia. That means the numbers of your fact checks become number one within these years. And so I'd like to know, because you develop 3 branch in other countries, and also your group 10 or 2 into 20 persons. So how did you growing up especially during the pandemic? And I think the quality of fact checks is pretty important. So it's pretty, for me, it's pretty challenging to grow up in very short time, but the BOOM make it. So would you please share your experience that you how to growing up during the pandemic, or growing up within the 5 years?
Yeah, thank you, Sama. So, see, as far as the productivity is concerned, there is no real secret there. As you know, we started somewhere in 2016, on November 8, 2016, when I joined here. We moved towards fact checking. So we've completed 5 years. Now, during this 5 years, we were the first fact checker to look at social media misinformation, any misinformation which is not just data, but across social media misinformation and political misinformation. So virtually, when I came here at BOOM, and after that, a couple of my colleagues also joined here. When we started the process, we built the entire process of fact checking right from scratch, because there was no one who was doing that in this country. We looked at IFC, and we looked at some of the fact checkers in US and Europe. We looked at them, we picked out the best practices from them, and we ensured that when we were building that newsroom, where we hired a lot of first-time journalists, they had no baggages. So they came in completely fresh, with no baggages from previous newsrooms, or even if there were a couple of them who had just 1.5 years, 2 years experience. So they were very fresh in their approach towards how we want to do it. Secondly, we stayed focused only on fact checking. We did not digress. We did not go into 10 different areas. That's how a newsroom then starts disintegrating, because you don't know what do you stand for. Do you stand for fact checking? Do you stand for general information to the public? Do you stand for viral stories? Do you stand for trending stories? If you start digressing into 50 other things, then you will lose the DNA of your newsroom. You will start losing the sharp focus that you're keeping towards pushing out the story. So that's how we maintained it. And then we also build in certain processes, right? Like we have 2 tip lines, and those 2 tip lines are actually a very big source for information that we get. And every day in the morning, we have meetings, we pick up the stuff that comes on those tip lines, we pass it on to the group of fact checkers that we have. It's a very sharp focus that we keep towards fact checking, and that's the only reason why we have managed to keep our productivity so high. And as far as growing our team is concerned, we kept on hiring bit by bit. We did not do all the hiring in one go, nor did we decide, okay, if we don't have people, we are not going to scale up. We scaled up very gradually, and that's why the number of stories are very high, because on any given day, we are looking at content pieces which are roughly about 40 to 50 content pieces, but we end up doing only about 7 to 8 stories in a day. So what we do is we look at a large number of content, but we only do about 7 to 8 stories in a day, because that's all that you can do in terms of manual intervention. Apart from this, what we've also done, which could also be a indicator for you when you are, as far as your newsroom is concerned also, a lot of the stories that we have done over the last 5 years are coming back in new numbers. It will come back with a small change, some text change, some image or video change. What we do is we don't waste time on them to do an entire fact checking. Those are what we call as fast checks, where we just put the image, we write a small para, and then we link it back to the older story. So that way we are able to also churn out higher number of stories and react faster to old misinformation which is coming on out in new shapes and form.
Thank you. And for Yanai-san, I think for the fact checking during the election is the most challenging project for fact checkers. So, however, your team is pretty young. They are most of them college students. So how did you build a team to do the fact checking during the Congress election? How did you gear them up?
はい。じゃあちょっと簡単に日本語で答えますと、この、討論会ですね。討論会の中継を見ながら作業を行いました。FIJ のスタッフがですね。で、FIJ のスタッフが行ったのは、ファクチュアルステートメンツのリストを作りまして、で、これをその討論会が終わってから、聞き直して作業を行って、早くても約6時間、かけて、完成をして、それでメディアパートナーに提供するということを行いました。
ありがとうございます。今ちょっとお答えしますね。なんか学生の活動もちょっと後で入れられるといいなと思いました。As for the first question, I started working on the list of factual statements while watching the live coverage of the debate on the spot. The list of factual statements was completed as early as 6 hours. It's like it varies, depends on the time, after the debate was over and provided to our media partners immediately.
もう一つ何か答えたく。
そうですね。なんか学生たちは若かったけども、どういうふうに教育をしていったかというような。
どういうふうにごめんなさい。
学生のファクトチェッカーたちをどういうふうに教育したかというような面ですね。
教育。
トレーニングをしたかですね。はい、
トレーニングをしたのか。実際に、選挙の前に、過去に行われた、選挙の討論会のビデオを使って、予行演習のことをしました。で、実際にファクチュアルステートメンツ、事実言明と我々呼んでいるんですが、ファクチュアルステートメンツを、どういうふうに選んで、で、リストを作るのかということについて、事前にトレーニングをして、で、本番に備えてできるようにしました。
As for the training of the young staff, I was actually involved in this training, and we showed a debate of the candidates before the actual debate on live. So we taught them how to pick the factual statements from the debate prior to the live discussion. So that's how we trained young staff. It was a very good one. Thank you.
Thank you. And we still have some questions from our audience. And would Professor Chen, would you like to take over and let the speakers answer the questions from the audience?
Okay. So first, I saw my students, Nunura, you already post your question. So would you, Nunura, so you are online. Would you mind, speak out to tell your question in 2 minutes? I know your question is very long. Oh, Nunura, you have to open your microphone.
Yeah, I haven't talked at him. Actually, one of my questions have been answered. The third one and the second one. First and second one, actually, they are related to each other. I was wondering why those fact-checking efforts, awareness lagged behind in Japan, because it wasn't needed, because there wasn't so much disinformation or etc. But or if there was another reason, because I wonder if the fact-checking initiative started from a demand from public, or it was kind of mostly initiative of private persons.
So Nunura, so it's N? Oh, okay. So who will pick up the question?
I think the first one is related to Japan,
Yeah.
but I can share my perspective on the second one. I think it should be started from the demand, from the public demand, because we are serving the public interest. I think fact checking is a form of a new form of journalism that really meet what the public really needs. But sometimes the public still haven't realized that they need fact checking. So it's not something that the member of the public stated that they need this, but we need to assess the information ecosystem in the communities, in the society around us, and we can see that there is a need for this service because of maybe the proliferation of mis and disinformation are so high, and there's a lot of confusions, sometimes polarization between different camps or different perspective on an issue. So it is something that started from the public demands, but it is not clearly stated, and we need to assess whether there is a need for that for ourselves. I hope that answers your question, Rola.
So Nuera, so you raised your hand? Okay.
Yes.
So you want to supplement?
Yes, if I should repeat my third question, actually it has been already answered by Mr. Vayu. Its question was the disinformation in this communication age network, and countries can be affected locally by the international developments. Also, the misinformation can spread international as well. So I was wondering if there was some kind of cooperation between those fact-checking initiatives in the governmental level or in private initiative levels. And Mr. Vayu had already answered, and there was, for example, there was one initiative started, there was a website for COVID-19 fact-checking internationally. It's kind of alliance, and I don't know if there's another, but I saw one of them. Maybe it will develop in the future more.
Okay, so thank you. So Nuera is from Turkey, so it's a very different perspective, and so that's the question from his perspective. So Yanai-san, so it's your turn. Okay.
So to just make sure the first question from Nuera-san, if I am correct, sorry, the question was if there's any collaboration from the Japanese government between Japanese government and the government abroad, or maybe I'm wrong. Could you repeat the question again, Nuera-san?
Actually, I didn't mean like government cooperation among the governments. I'm just wondering if there is any international cooperation. It could be in the level of private initiatives or in together governmental and private initiatives together. But I was just wondering if there's any international cooperation, because misinformation is also international, and countries can be affected locally by international developments. So if something's happening on the other end of the world, and if it's still affecting you, for example, the stock markets or whatever, so you have to check it locally in another country. So I was just wondering if there's such kind of cooperation, but there are already there's already one for COVID-19. Maybe there are more. I wasn't aware.
No, great. I wasn't hearing that part well. So, 柳井さん、質問は、海外との協力があるのか、その協力っていうのは、日本の団体、その政府、プライベートしかり、あるのかというもので、あれば、その海外のそのミスインフォメーションは日本の国内の状況にもとても影響が多いと思うので、ケース、 事例があれば教えてくださいということでした。
日本政府との関係は特にありません。で、その海外のとの協力ですか？
はい、そうですね。
海外との協力については、台湾ファクトチェックセンター、迷子ペンといったいくつかのファクトチェック団体から調査の依頼があればそれに協力するということを今 FIJ としてはやっているというのが現状ですね。あと日本のメディアが行ったファクトチェック、COVID-19 に関するファクトチェックの結果については、英語に訳して IFCN のデータベースに提供するということも、一応、海外との協力の一環で行いました。以上です。
So, to answer the question on the cooperation with government, there's no cooperation with the Japanese government and the international organization. But like we have today, TFC or MyGoPen, if they request us to verify misinformation, we respond. So if there's a request, we respond. And there's another example of our project. We translated Japanese media's fact checks into English and we provided to the IFCN's database, and that was the part of the project in terms of the international cooperation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, Summer, you have any supplement? I saw your comments on the message.
Yes, I have a question for Yanai-san. I think it's pretty interesting for me. For actually many Japanese media, many journalists from Japan, they came to do interview with TFC, and they deserve to. They just want to know how fact-checking matters and how fact-checking make its influence in the society. And also they were told us they are pretty impressed with TFC. But when I start to say many our fact checks was collaborate by FIJ, and the FIJ is our partners, and they help us to do the fact checking, and they help us debunking lots of hoaxes in Taiwan. And the FIJ is doing pretty well in Japan. Actually, you need to interview them. And when I mention TFC, they will take note. But when I start to say FIJ, they just stop taking note. And so I really like to know, after the pandemic, and especially now you are do the fact checking during the election, and is there any change for Japanese media? If they got better understanding of FIJ.
柳さん、1つ目の質問は今チャットに書き込んだんですが、2つ目の質問は、ジャパニーズ、日本のメディアの中でファクトチェックに対する考え方は変わったかどうかというような、パンデミックの間に変わったかというような質問。
1つ目の質問は
1つ目の質問は、ファクトチェッキングは、何が、なぜ公共、パブリックに大事であるか、ファクトチェッキングっていうのはどうして大事なのかというのをもう一度柳井さんの口からお伺いしたいと思います。
一つ目の質問に対しては、これはやはり誤情報というものを可視化する、見える化することによって、いわば人々のメディアリテラシー、情報リテラシーを高めることができると思うんですね。で、それがファクトチェックの一つの重要な役割で、ジャーナリズムも これを担うべきだと考えています。
So the fact, as for the first question, fact checking is very important to visualize the misinformation among the public, so the media can promote and improve the the literacy among the public. はい、一つ目です。
二つ目は何でしたっけ？ごめんなさい。
二つ目は、日本のメディアの中で、
そうか、
ファクトチェックに対する。
日本のメディアでもファクトチェックの関心が高まって、やる新聞社も増えてきたんですが、専門部署、専門記者がまだ存在しません。ここまで。
The Japanese media started paying attention in fact-checking, but there is no specialized like the department of the media or group, unfortunately.
で、ファクトチェックの、専門記者がいないのは、ほとんどのメディアは他の、ニュース報道の方が優先度が高くて、ファクトチェックをする余裕がないと考えている人が多いんですね。以上、ここまで。
We don't have many fact checkers in Japan because many medias consider take the fact checking into low priority. I think that is why. Yeah.
で、この状況を変えるには、そのメディアの上層部の人たちに、そのファクトチェックも他のニュース報道と同じように重要であるという認識を、もっと持ってもらう必要があると思います。ここが、まだそこまでの認識には至ってないのが現状です。
In order to change this situation, it is necessary to get the upper management, in terms of the management of the media group, to recognize that fact-checking is just as important as other news reporting in Japan. So this is where we are at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So right now we still have around 10 minutes. So I don't have a lot of questions, but a lot of questions was already answered on the message. So right now we open the floor for the audience. So if you have any question, please raise your hands and speak out. And each person have 2 minutes. Okay, so anyone participants want to raise your hands and speak out your question? Any volunteer or any participants have question in your mind?
So if before we go to our conclusion, can we just turn on the camera and we take a group pictures? And thank you for all of you to participating the third panel of fact checking in Asia 2021. And I would like to encourage everyone turn on your camera, and then we can have a group pictures during the pandemic. And we really hope next year we can have the face-to-face meeting in Taipei.
Thank you, Summer.
Okay. Hi. Okay. And due to we now we have 9 minutes, so would every speakers have like 1 or 2 minutes to make a small conclusion for today's panel?
Yeah, please.
Jency,
the
first one.
Yeah, sure. It's always a pleasure to meet fellow fact checkers, academicians, and those who are interested in battling misinformation and disinformation in the region. I feel that considering that we've done this over at least 3 to 5 years now. It's time to form informal or a formal union of or a collective of fact checkers around Asia. So I would ask all my fellow panelists and also all those who have gathered here, if they have any bright ideas, they want or some way to bring together all the fact-checking initiatives in the Asian region. BOOM is very happy to participate in that as well.
Thank you so much. So how about Wahyu?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Chan. Thank you, Summer. I want to echo what Jency has said just now. It's always a privilege and an honor to share the panel with fellow fact checkers in Asia. As I said, it's a common problem. Misinformation and disinformation is something that we face as a society. So the solution needs to also include all relevant stakeholders in the society. And it's really important to make this effort as a communal effort, because at the end, what really matters is how literate our public is. If we can not only tackle the fact checking at the end, at the core, the real issue here is how literate our public, so they can themselves differentiate what is facts and what is hoax. So I think the effort to spread awareness about news literacy, about media literacy, is as important as doing fact checking. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. And we also look for Yanai-san. 柳井さん、どうぞお願いします。
ファクトチェックは、私は協力がものすごく重要だと思うんですね。メディアやファクトチェッカーの間で、競争関係もあると思うんですけれども、やはりそれ以上に、連携をしたり、協力をしたり、情報を共有したりということで、少ないリソースの中でも最大限の成果を出すということをやっていくということが今求められていると思います。お願いします。
I think the cooperation is the key in terms of the fact checking. So although there's a rivalry or competing each other in the media organization, but we really need to cooperate each other with small resource to make a big change.
はい。それと、もう一点だけファクトチェックのに対する社会の期待とか信頼性をどうやって高めていくのかということがやはり今後大きな課題ではないかと思っています。でそのためには、やはりファクトチェックの量を増やしていくことも大事ですけども、質をどういうふうに、高めて、で、人々がよりファクトチェックによって、メディアリテラシーを高めるということの、役割を、どういうふうに高めていくのかということが、今後もっとそういった面でも、協力やディスカッションが必要かなと思います。
So creating anticipations and gaining the trust in the public is very important, and rather producing quantities in terms of the articles, but like qualities are the important part, and we need to have like discussion like this more often. Thank you.
So, Summer, you want to conclude within 2 minutes?
Yes. Hi, this is Summer of Taiwan Fact Check Center, and it's our honor to co-host this panel with Zhenji University with Professor Chen, and also we do appreciate the 3 keynote speakers come to participate and share their experience during this panel. And I got a lot of inspirations from their sharing. And I think the pandemic, although the pandemic stopped us, has the real meeting. However, I think the pandemic also a very good opportunity for us to meet on the online and without any blocking. So we do appreciate those 3 keynote speakers to share their experience, and hope next year we can meet. We can have a real meeting in Taipei, and you can come to Taipei to enjoy the food and enjoy every kind of things in Taiwan, and hope we can collaborate together and to fight against infodemic during those severe pandemic. And thank you all of you. I think all the audience for this panel, we do appreciate your participating. Thank you.
Okay, so because we only have 2 minutes left, and I also want to conclude in 1 minute. So for the COVID-19, at the beginning, everybody thinks that is a crisis. But as a scholar, we always say never waste the crisis. So that means the crisis will become the new opportunity for us to review our process and review our mechanism, whether there is a big problem or not. So this time for the COVID-19 for almost 2 years, and right now it's almost at the end of the COVID-19. So we really appreciate not only for the doctor in the first line, we also thanks for all journalists, especially for the independent journalists and the fact-checking organization, because of all your efforts to stand in the first front. So defense not only our society, but also defense our democracy. So I really appreciate all your participants, and personally, I'm really looking forward for all of you to come to Taiwan in person very soon. And I believe next year we can invite you to come to Taipei, and we can share our experience together, and then we can join and we can talk more. And thanks for Yanai, thanks for Jency, and thanks for Wahyu, and also thanks for Taiwan Fact Check Center, because all your efforts and your arrangement and your participants that our conference can have more elaborated conversation. So thank you so much, and this is a very dynamic conference, and I really appreciate, and that is my honor to participate and involve you. So that's my honor, and our conference will conclude here and end here. So thank you so much, and thanks for all the participants. Okay, thank you so much.